Used to be Chris and Nigel. Tonight, it's Chris Jr. and Conor.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Fatal Fury main event of the evening here at sold-out Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, London, England. 12 rounds of boxing in the middleweight division. On the line, legacy. On the line, the fight we've been waiting for. And it's all brought to you by, ladies and gentlemen, by the Bible of Boxing, Ring Magazine, and SNK Corporation, publisher of the legendary fighting game, Final Fury, City of the Wolves. Promoters, Ben for Boxer, Eddie Hearn for Matchroom Boxing and Box Raw. Sponsorship provided by the Public Investment Fund. Visit Saudi, STC, SRMG, Dr. Suleiman Al Habib Medical Group, Saudia, the national airlines of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Jeddah Season, Milaf Cola, Visit Conor, Core Group, Dessert, NHC, Jocko, Sky, the Arab National Bank, First Data, Sella, and SMC. This contest is sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control. Steward in charge and supervisor at ringside tonight, Charles Giles. Timekeeper at the bell, Stephen Pucci. The three judges scoring will be Lee Every, Kieran McCann, and Mark Bates. And in charge of the action at the bell, your referee, the veteran Victor Laughlin. And ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, in attendance here at ringside tonight are some of the greatest of the great British fighters who accomplished world championships. But in the ring tonight, standing here with their sons, representing the greatest era of the middleweight and super middleweight division 35 years ago. Please, a round of applause for the two Hall of Fame fighters, former middleweight and super middleweight champion of the world, Nigel Benn, former middleweight, super middleweight champion of the world, Chris Eubank Sr. And now, the officials are in place and they are ready. The fighters are in the ring and they are ready. So for the sold out 67,484 fans here in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, London, England, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! Introducing first, and fighting out of the red corner, wearing black, official weight, 156.4 pounds. His professional record is a perfect one. 23 fights, 23 victories, including 14 big wins by knockout. He's the European Continental welterweight champion from London, England, the undefeated Conor, the Destroyer, And across the ring, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing white and red, officially weighing in at 160.05 pounds, with a record of 34 victories, 25 big wins by knockout against 3 defeats. He is a 3-time 2-division IBO world champion, ranked number 5 by the Bible of Boxing Ring Magazine in the middleweight division, from East Sussex, England. he is Chris Eubank Jr.
So Victor Loughlin, the referee, calls the two fighters to centre ring. Chris Eubank Jr. still in the dressing gown. Conor Benn getting ready in the red corner. And there's just that last-minute bit of Vaseline being applied to the faces of both men. Last-minute instructions from the respective trainers, Jonathan Banks and Tony Sims, and a drink of water for Chris Eubank Jr. Victor Loughlin says he's ready. Conor Benn is stripped down to his black sequin shorts, reminiscent of his father, Nigel. And Chris Eubank Jr. in the white shorts, trimmed with red. Final instructions about to be given by the referee.
OK, gents, you know the rules. Remember, obey my commands at all time. Defend yourselves at all time. God bless, touch gloves. Touch them now. Touch them.
No touch of gloves, and he's going to call them back here. It was Eubank Jr. who didn't want to do it, and the two dads are going to sit side by side at ringside. There's the touch. So 32 years after Eubank Benn 2, we get the third instalment of one of British boxing's greatest rivalries. It's time for the sons to pick up where the dads left off. Ronald McIntosh.
Well, back in the 1990s, their famous fighting forebears brought Britain to a standstill with their epic brace of world title bouts in a roped arena. Now, the sons of the fathers reanimate British boxing's most famous rivalry as Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn collide in a clash for familial bragging rights. The latest chapter in this bitter blood feud. We are underway. Born rivals Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn going about searching for one another immediately in the space of centre ring. The shorter figure, Conor Benn, weighing a career heaviest 156 pounds, wearing a gladiator's tunic in black sequined tassel variety, bobbing away with the backhand, but standing his ground in centre ring is the taller figure, the man who has competed at super middleweight at a weight of 168 pounds for 2 years between 2017 and 2019. That is Chris Eubank Jr. Both men sporting shaven heads. Bobbing and weaving is the shorter, bustling figure of Conor Benn, who just kept on the end of a stiff left jab with the 2 men at centre ring. A wild swing of a crude agricultural left hook from Conor Benn, missed by a country mile, as Chris Eubank Jr. seeking to get over the front foot and measure the distance with his lead left hand. Conor Benn is all dynamism, springing in and out on active feet, falls short with a left jab behind those black gloves. Conor Benn, heavily tattooed torso, jawline and even his temple. Chris Eubank Jr., a clean upper body. Remember, he missed the middleweight limit, won just a few ounces over 160 pounds and just a few ounces at the second attempt after he turned up late for yesterday's weigh-in. As we go beyond the halfway stage of this opening round, the action is in the middle of the boxing ring. Left hook lead fight in by Conor Benn, parried effectively by Chris Eubank Jr. Then a right lead fight in by Conor Benn, driving Chris Eubank to the ropes on the far side of the arena. There's an untidy tangle. Referee Victor Loughlin having to crowbar the two men apart because they were reluctant to heed his command of step back. Shooting out a left jab and going in search of a right cross from centre ring is Chris Eubank Jr. There is a left jab from the belt line from Chris Eubank Jr., but he's not yet found a range. Wonderful head movement coming from the body-popping figure of Conor Benn. He's trying to step in behind a left jab. He stamps hard on the front foot to feint, but doesn't let his lead left hand go. There's a hook, then a jab from Chris Eubank Jr. The left jab did get through, and another punishing jab landed with a bent elbow from Chris Eubank Jr. And Conor Benn trying to think and bob and weave his way into range. Remember, he's some 3 inches shorter, as again, Conor Benn coming forward, going in search of the backhand, but circling smartly counterclockwise to his right, away from the backhand of Conor Benn is Chris Eubank Jr. And Conor Benn on this cool spring evening here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, providing even cooler breezes because he's loading up on punches and missing by some distance with roundhouse right and lead left hooks. So he has not yet found his range. Chris Eubank Jr. altogether more consistent with his lead left jab, which has served him well. 10-second clapper has sounded. Conor Benn, all dynamism, but inaccurate during those opening 3 minutes, Steve Bunce.
And exchanging a few words at the end, as you'd expect. I think that Chris Eubank's got it absolutely right. Very high right guard, and his left shoulder's up, blocking any straight right hands from Conor Benn. Most of the punches from Conor Benn have been swings. Once or twice, which he let the left jab go and then the right hand, and it seemed to work. Smart boxing, not stupid boxing.
Yes, and what was very evident as they both come out, how small Conor Benn is compared to Eubank. He's very small, but having said that, we spoke about earlier about how quick he can be. He's certainly quick with his head movements. You've seen Eubank Jr. miss with 2 or 3 shots, a jab, the odd hook here and there, literally because that speed of movement with the head from Conor Benn. What he's got to do now, Steve, with that movement, he's got to hook off those movements as he's bobbing and weaving.
I'm just looking in the corner. Jonathan Banks, obviously the main trainer in the corner, but Ronnie Davis is there. Ronnie Davis is there all those years, the veteran. That's a voice you need in your corner.
As we move into the second round, Ronnie Davis Jr. tells us that he was one of the first men to hold the newborn Chris Eubank Jr. That's how long-standing that relationship is. Remember, it was Ronnie Davis Jr. who was not averse to giving Chris Eubank Sr. slaps in the corner in between rounds during his majestic run as a world champion. Chris Eubank Jr. just looking to measure the distance with his jab at centre ring. There's a left hook slung in by Conor Benn, but it's inaccurate once more. Now it's a lead left hook attempted on the resumption by Chris Eubank Jr. Right hand lead, then a left hook landed by Conor Benn. Certainly got the attention of Chris Eubank Jr., who employs a headlock against a smaller man, putting him beneath his left armpit while digging away to his left flank with his free right hand. So referee Victor Laughlin has called time, and he's just saying to the men, you have got to listen to my instructions, cut out the rough stuff, calls time in, and the action resumes. It's atop the logo at centre ring as Conor Benn continuing to fake in exaggerated, fast-twitch fashion. He runs into a left jab from Chris Eubank Jr., which stopped him in his tracks. Terrific use of the lead left hand from Chris Eubank Jr. And again, remember, he's a naturally heavier man, and I think Conor Benn, oh, that's the solid right hand, landed to the ear of Chris Eubank Jr. from Conor Benn. But on that jolting left jab landed by Eubank Jr. a few moments ago, Conor Benn felt the full force of a natural middleweight jab rammed right into his face. Approaching the halfway stage of the second round, there's another left jab. This time it's softer from Chris Eubank Jr., countered by a left jab to the body by Conor Benn. The boxers standing in the middle of the boxing ring. Another double jab, Chris Eubank Jr. over the front foot. And when it's at this type of distance, Chris Eubank Jr. just gives the impression that he's the governor because he's putting Conor Benn on the end of his left jab now. There's a left jab to the sternum that backs up Conor Benn, but he explodes with a leaping left hook which catches the bearded chin of Chris Eubank Jr. But he took it well. Remember, that chin previously demonstrated and thought to be undentable before he ran into the forearm of Liam Beefy Smith to suffer the only inside the distance defeat of his career. 3 losses on the ledger. 37-bout ledger of Chris Eubank Jr. as Eubank Jr. controlling the distance well with the left jab once again. There's another left jab pushed out, but what a jab pushed off the back foot, landed by the shorter figure, Conor Benn. Plenty of back foot in it, and then found the range with a lead right cross, and another one, and it's Conor Benn swinging for the fences with an overhand right. It's inaccurate, but he did have success through that passage of the second round behind a lead left jab, where he closed the distance on terrifically quick feet. 25 seconds remaining in round number 2 as Conor Benn continues to bob and weave and bustle in front of his man, feinting over that front foot, trying to close the distance against his taller opponent. Eubank Jr. comes forward behind a double jab, shot out from the belt line. It backs up Conor Benn, and the space remains between the two as a hard left hook driven into the chest of Chris Eubank Jr. by Conor Benn. 10-second clapper is sounded. Big swing and a miss with overhand right, then a left hook to the body by Conor Benn, whose accuracy is improved, but still nowhere near what it needs to be. But he did find the range on a couple of occasions in that round, Steve.
He found the range with a good jab, and it was a jab he threw once or twice in the first round. The jab set him up for the best punch of the fight, a right hand, which I think, Rich, that right hand, I think that not hurt, not stunned, but somewhere in between. Eubank knew he'd been caught with a right hand.
Yeah, there's a couple of flashes where you're seeing Conor Benn produce some good stuff. But overall, Steve, he's boxing at this stage. He's a little bit reckless. He's too far out. He's swinging from the rafters. He's got to use that jab a little bit more. He used it a couple of times in that round and he scored and he did well with it. Now, you know, Steve, with the jab it measures the distance that sets the right hand up. That's what he's got to do. A couple of good little flashes from him, but he's too reckless at this stage.
He is too reckless, but at the same time, Eubank's not picking him up.
No, he's not.
Eubank's wary of those punches, been clipped 1 or 2 times.
But Steve, I fear that Benn's going to walk onto a shot if he keeps rushing in the way he's doing this.
I think you might be right, Richie boy.
So we move into the third round. Christopher Livingston Eubank, Chris Eubank Senior and Nigel Benn sat next to one another ringside as their sons resume this family rivalry born in the 1990s. And Conor Benn just backed up by a double jab from Chris Eubank Jr. Both men going in search of jabs as Conor Benn continues to bob and weave and twitch in front of his man. There he goes in search of a counter right-hand lead, but he was inaccurate. But the swiftness of his punching is notable, but he's not backing up that explosivity with any accuracy. The two men fused themselves together in a clinch. Chris Eubank was reluctant to break despite the instruction of referee Victor Laughlin. And now the two men atop the logo of centre ring. Boxers have had trouble with the traction of their shoes atop the decal. Left jab, right cross landed by Conor Benn. And that caused Chris Eubank Jr. to blink. And then Chris Eubank Jr. shaken up by a thunderous left hook from Conor Benn. And Chris Eubank Jr. keen to fashion a clinch. Remember, failing to make the weight. Now I suggested that. And Chris Eubank Jr. whispering into the shell-like ear of Conor Benn during that coming together. But make no mistake, a howitzer of a left hook crashed home from Conor Benn, and it certainly got the attention of Chris Eubank Jr. as he resumes the verbal conversation once again at centre ring. But remember, Chris Eubank Jr. overweighted his second attempt by just a couple of ounces, 160 pounds, and just under an ounce for Chris Eubank Jr. But remember, he has successfully made middleweight or under for his previous 7 contests. But was he tight at the weigh-in? Because tightness at a weight can often deplete punch resistance as the two men exchange jabs in the middle of the boxing ring. But Conor Benn, seemingly growing in confidence and seemingly getting better at finding his distance, goes in search of a right cross and then a right hook. Both of them going over the shoulder of Chris Eubank Jr., who's operating behind gloves that are held high as the two men continue to feint on the razor's edge of range in the middle of the boxing ring. Left hook looked rather ponderous from Chris Eubank Jr. My goodness, where's his zip gone? Conor Benn looking altogether sharper through this passage of the round, but the left hook that Chris Eubank Jr. threw out, he was learning the shot. No speed, no pop, no potency on it, and then it's Conor Benn who wrestles down Chris Eubank Jr. to the canvas. They both do an untidy roll on the mat of the boxing ring. Referee Victor Laughlin wipes the gloves clean, and the action resumes in the space of centre ring. So the feinting on the edge of range, both men with wide held hands, plenty of opportunity to tag the chin. And then right on cue, right hand over the top by Conor Benn is a solid shot. Left hook which follows was a little less accurate. Double stab jab to the body by Chris Eubank, then bringing the jab upstairs. But all of a sudden in this round, it's as though Chris Eubank Jr. is boxing his weight underwater because the pop on his punches had decreased dramatically. Now he tries to get some speed into his straight shots on the 10-second clapper to conclude the third.
The fight is being won and won handily by speed. It's that simple. So what if Conor Benn misses? He can land another shot. Plus, he really hurt Eubank with that left hook, which I'm stunned at the difference in speed. Stunned.
That was Conor Benn's best round by far. Yes, the speed element. We spoke about it earlier, him being naturally the lighter man. Good head movement, he's starting to hook off that movement as well now. He's got a really fast right hand and it's catching Eubank out. Eubank's less effective with his jab and Conor Benn is getting closer and closer, and it's definitely the speed of punch which is giving Chris Eubank Jr. all the problems in the world, Steve. And he was actually rocked with that left hook. He was
rocked with the left hook, rocked with the left hook, forced the hold, massively hold. I tell you what, this is interesting, because if Conor doesn't slow down and it doesn't start to become a Eubank fight, we might have an ugly few rounds coming up here.
Well, Conor Benn was up off his stool early to answer the bell to begin round number 4. Chris Eubank Jr. took every second and then some of the 60 permitted in his blue corner on this near side of the ring. Round 4 is underway. The action resumes in the middle of the boxing ring. Right hand attempted over the top, followed by a left hook to the body from Conor Benn. Lead left jab is a sharp shot from Chris Eubank Jr. And again, he's seeking to control matters with that lead left stick and the verbal conversation that he's issuing in the direction of Conor Benn. Left jab to the body from Chris Eubank Jr. was countered by a right hand over the top from Conor Benn. And then again, Chris Eubank Jr. employing the headlock, putting his greater bulk on top of the smaller man, seeking to wear him out. There's a 4-shot combination. Left hooks to body and head in between right hands from Chris Eubank Jr. Did find a range with the left hooks to body and head, and his speed seems to have returned here in round number 4. But Conor Benn, undeterred, still winging in hooks in search of the bearded chin of Chris Eubank Jr. Minute gone here in round number 4 as Chris Eubank Jr. grinning and talking through his gum shield once again. Left jab to the body, followed by a roundhouse right to the body of Conor Benn. Conor Benn swinging, missing wildly once again, and then as Chris Eubank Jr. ties up the left hand of Conor Benn on the inside, he swung away with the right hand, threatening to stray into rabbit punch territory to the rear of the head. Beautiful solid stab jab to the body from Chris Eubank Jr. Then a jab upstairs, but he's countered by a right hand over the top as Conor Benn squats down deep, bobs and weaves in front of his man, takes a beautifully picked right uppercut from Chris Eubank Jr. but barely blinked, kept his boxing stance and continues his forward foray. Both men breathing through mouths that are open as they continue to twitch and faint on the edge of range, as the crowd dialing up the decibel level here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in North London as Conor Benn shooting out a jab, but he was inaccurate. Conor Benn now boxing behind a low-held lead left hand, and that prompts an avenue of opportunity which is exploited with a scoring jab to the body. What a counter left uppercut on the inside from Conor Benn, who swayed to his left, dipped to the knee and uncoiled with the left uppercut that checked the chin of Chris Eubank Jr. 50 seconds remaining here in round number 4. They tie one another up once again, and Chris Eubank Jr. talking into the ear once more, reminiscent of what the Muhammad Ali did to George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. Left hook landed by Conor Benn on the resumption, caused Chris Eubank Jr. to dip at the knees, but he took the shot well. His boxing stance is now back beneath him, and the two men still going in search of the jabs. Counter right hand again from Conor Benn is a rapier, and then he follows up with a riding crop of a left jab right into the face of Chris Eubank Jr., followed by a left jab to the body, and Conor Benn growing in confidence by the second the deeper we go into this 12-round domestic dust-up. 10-second clapper imminent here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as Conor Benn, backed up by a left jab, he finds himself on the ropes. He's trying to fire away with shoe shine shots, then intelligently ties his man up. Referee Victor Loughlin has to get physical between the two to separate the men on the bell.
It's hard to tell what Chris Eubank's trying. He keeps smiling, he keeps talking, but he keeps taking shots. The speed is still the factor, Richie. And I hate to simplify a fight like this, but I'll say one thing: you were ringside. You squint your eyes. This is 1990, the NEC. Yeah. This is so like that fight.
Absolutely. And what's impressing me more and more about Conor Benn now is he's starting to look for the right-hand counter. Now, Chris Eubank's got to watch what he's doing here, because his jab isn't that quick tonight. It's fairly slow. And what Conor Benn is waiting for now, I'm just watching it on the screen here, these right-hand counters, and what they need with that, they need a slow jab. And so if Eubank keeps coming forward with that slow jab, he's going to walk onto more right hands. It's the speed of Conor Benn that's still prevailing here.
At the end of that round, though, I did think that Eubank liked having Benn trapped on the ropes, and Benn didn't like being trapped on the ropes. It was only 5 seconds. Let's see.
Well, the pattern that was established in the previous round of Conor Benn rising up early off his stall and Chris Eubank Jr. taking every second to the 60, repeated. And while Conor Benn was standing sentry near his own red corner, he was hurling insults in the direction of Conor Benn, who was returning while reclining back on his stall. After a intervention by referee Victor Loughlin, round 5 underway. The action is in the middle of the ring, and down goes Conor Benn. He athletically rolls out of it with a backward roll after he was caught by the hook of Chris Eubank Jr.'s elbow. No knockdown, ruled a slip by Victor Loughlin. Stepping in behind a jab on the resumption is Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn going in search of that right hand lead over the top. Fighting on the inside is Chris Eubank Jr., who just nudges his man's chin with a right hand, and now quickening up the pace is Chris Eubank Jr. behind a double jab right hand. Two men locking horns on the inside, burst of punches to the body, thrown in a bushel by Conor Benn, and now the action back just on the edge of range once again. The action is in the middle of the boxing ring. Right hand, left hook slung into the body by Conor Benn, and then Victor Loughlin just has to peel the two men apart with Conor Benn pinning Chris Eubank Jr. to the ropes on the far side of the ring, approaching the red corner. Increasingly the headlock being applied by Chris Eubank Jr. just seeking to sap the energy of the naturally smaller man by putting his full 160-pound bulk on him. And remember, there was all that conversation about the rehydration clause as Conor Benn reaches for a right cross, which grazed the chin of Conor Benn. Excuse me, which grazed the chin of Chris Eubank. And now the two men taking turns to tee off with left-right combinations, but neither man accurate because they're not carrying their feet into range with them. But with all that conversation about the rehydration clause, Chris Eubank Jr. couldn't weigh in more than 10 pounds heavier than 160 limit. He weighed in at 169 at this morning's weigh-in. And again, he's seeking to employ that physicality against Conor Benn. Minute remaining as Conor Benn just put on the end of a double jab right cross, but he's continuing to bob and weave in the face of these straight pot shot successes for Chris Eubank Jr. Sharp shooting jab to the body from Chris Eubank Jr. after Conor Benn fell short with a lead left hook. And the successes that he was having with pot shots for Conor Benn, just fewer in this round. Steps in with a left jab, but it's parried smartly by the right glove of Chris Eubank Jr. And Chris Eubank Jr. resuming the conversation once again. He's got a reddening on his right cheek just above his neatly trimmed beard. Conor Benn clean shaven, both head and chin, shorn of the beard that he was sporting throughout the build-up to this acrimonious contest that continues the family feud. The action is in the middle of the boxing ring. Hard left hook slung into the body just above the belt line by Conor Benn. Controlling the distance with his jab once more by moving clockwise to his left is Chris Eubank Jr. snaking out a left jab beautifully and then answering the telephone, getting that right glove up to his temple to block the incoming left hook that was slung in by Conor Benn. Good response from Chris Eubank Jr. during that round, who controlled things with his jab.
Good round. Eubank's marked on above the right eye and sort of under the left eye. I don't like the markings. I like what I saw from Eubank there. Bit of pace, bit of control. But here's the thing, Rich. It looked to me like Conor Benn slowed down slightly. Before you talk about it, how you got it at the moment?
I have got Conor Benn just ahead, Steve, at the moment.
Yeah, 3-2.
3-2, that's it, yeah. But I thought in that round there, I thought Eubank controlled the distance a lot better. I think Conor Benn is naturally slowing down, and that's going to be a disadvantage to him. He's got to keep this fast, ferocious pace up when he's getting up close, bobbing and weaving, fast feet in. There he slowed his feet down. It suited Eubank down to the ground, and he actually started to box better at range.
And Eubank started to enjoy himself. He was making Conor miss rather than Conor missing, and there is a massive difference between those two things. Oh, Ronald, you're loving this. You're loving. Look at Ron's big grin.
We move into round number 6 in this middleweight contest. Conor Benn stepping up to 160 for the first time in his career, facing so many firsts tonight. His first stadium fight against the heaviest man he has ever fought as he runs into a stiff left jab during an attempted exchange of jabs. Double hook from Chris Eubank Jr., body then head. Chris Eubank Jr. just evades the left hook that was slung in by Conor Benn. And now the two men really, as they claim one another, swinging away with backhands. Neither man was accurate. Rather ponderous left jab scores to the body from Chris Eubank Jr., but it's devoid of speed once again. He parries the incoming left hook with his right forearm by again getting in up to fend off the incoming fire. So Chris Eubank Jr. just slowing down the jab. He's controlling the tempo very effectively with it. Physical tactics applied by Conor Benn, the smaller man, who drove his head beneath the chin of Chris Eubank Jr. and then put the heel of his glove into the face of the former IBO middleweight champion. Back in the day, we would call that lacing. But now the lace is covered with binding, and on the resumption, oh, beautiful check left hook from Chris Eubank Jr. checks the chin of Conor Benn, who's having trouble with his footing atop that logo, which has given fighters so much difficulty with the traction of their shoe soles tonight. But he's got his boxing stance beneath him now. The two men are in the middle of the boxing ring, staring at one another. Breaking the standoff is Chris Eubank Jr. with a left jab which scored. He tried to turn it into a left hook, but he couldn't find a range. Then there's an exchange of jabs, each man taking turns. What a right uppercut slung in by Chris Eubank Jr. It was a half hook, half uppercut on a 45-degree angle, and it caught the advancing Conor Benn. Now Conor Benn's speed appears to have dissipated as Chris Eubank Jr. wipes his feet on the matting of the canvas of the boxing ring like a matador in the bull ring, and again just ensuring that his feet are sure beneath him. Chris Eubank Jr. briefly bracketing his head with his hands to fend off the incoming jab, but then a lead left hook got over the low held guard of Conor Benn from Chris Eubank Jr. The pace has most certainly slowed, particularly from the smaller man, Conor Benn, and that dissipation in speed is playing right into the wheelhouse of the naturally bigger man, Chris Eubank Jr. The pace has slowed in the contest. Chris Eubank Jr. now altogether more comfortable with the reduced speed seemingly. As he lands another left jab, it was countered by a right hand from Conor Benn, but then he came back with another 2 jabs. Chris Eubank Jr. getting the better of the exchange, and as he claimed Conor Benn around the waist with his left hand, he dug away to his left flank with his right hand, rattling his ribs with those effective body punches. 20 seconds remaining in round number 6, and it's Chris Eubank Jr. shooting out jab from the belt line, and a terrific left jab slaps the head back of Conor Benn, who's trying to bob and weave beneath the punches, and again he runs into another left jab, and he's keen to initiate a clinch. This jab serving Chris Eubank Jr. terrifically well. Referee Victor Loughlin has called time. He's telling Chris Eubank Jr. not to fend off Conor Benn with the elbow, and Chris Eubank Jr. saying, well, he's coming in, hitting me with rabbit punches, but Chris Eubank Jr. controlling things with his lead left very well once again.
It's getting dirty. Tony Sims telling Victor Loughlin, tell him to stop holding, something that Chris Eubank can do quite comfortably, Rich. He's got that extra bit of poundage. I think Chris Eubank, even though it wasn't a dominant round, I think he won the round. What's more, he set the tone. Yeah, I don't like suddenly how slow Conor Benn looks.
Yeah, all of a sudden, his tank seems to have emptied a little bit. He gets caught with time and again in that round by the jab. Simple boxing by Eubank there, but the pace is starting to suit him more and more because he's slowing things down, and he's controlling the distance with the jab, and he's bringing Conor Benn onto the shots. So Conor Benn now, we need to see him again go through the gears. He's got to up the tempo.
He needs a good round.
But can he do it? That's the big question.
Richie, I've got it 3-3 at the moment.
3-3, Steve.
Conor Benn needs a round.
Round 7.
Into the second half of this 12-round contest we go. 6 rounds completed, a potential 6 rounds remain. And after Victor Loughlin just stood in between the men as the bell sounded on the resumption of action, it was a stiff double jab from Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn, perhaps aware that the last couple of rounds hasn't gone in his way, have tried to increase his activity. It's very physical, and as Victor Loughlin tried to step in between the two men continued to let their hands go. That's prompted Victor Loughlin to call time, and it's only admonishment in the direction of Chris Eubank Jr. But to me, it seemed like 6 of 1. Oh, what a counter right uppercut off the back foot from Chris Eubank Jr., catching the advancing Conor Benn, who was seeking to maraud his way in, but had his chin checked by a beautiful uppercut turned underneath. And now a left jab right cross from Chris Eubank Jr. on the front foot, seeking to back up Conor Benn towards the neutral corner on this near side of the ring. Referee Victor Loughlin separates the two. 50 seconds gone in round number 7. Oh, Chris Eubank Jr. 3-shot combination. Left, right, corkscrew left, and the final corkscrew left. Slap the head back of Conor Benn. Conor Benn breathing through a mouth that is open now. Runs into a left jab that dips his knees. And Chris Eubank Jr. seeking to take this contest into his preferred territory. The world title challenger, who has only lost to the very best in the business, seeking to assert his deeper experience here now. Conor Benn gamely wills his way forwards once again, but he's being peppered by the lead left hand of Chris Eubank, which is coming from his belt line. Brought a right cross into play, and again he's just reducing Conor Benn to target practice through this portion of the round. Jab successes, right hand successes, still grinding his way forwards is Conor Benn. Fires a speculative left uppercut, but he's made to pay a heavy price in the form of a 3-shot salvo. Right, left, right from Chris Eubank Jr. The two men leaning on one another as Chris Eubank Jr. resumes the running conversation in the direction of his opponent. Minute remaining in round number 7, and it's been a terrific round so far of accurate, potent punch picking from Chris Eubank Jr. Right, left jab, right hook fired in from Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn responds with a left jab to the body, and Conor Benn looking just a little bit devoid of ideas here now as he runs into another left-right combination. He continues to fire away in the pocket, did have success, but his first and third boxing, the first and final word coming from Chris Eubank Jr. during the course of what was an exchange at centre ring. Conor Benn just losing his shape a little bit here now. He's looking for the sharp, arcing hooks and uppercuts on the inside, but they look rather crude during his previous attempted combination. Still looking to bob and weave, but he's put on the end of a left jab by Chris Eubank Jr. And another one, runs into another left jab as he's going in search of punches with angles. Credit to the commitment of Conor Benn, but his energy levels appear to be dissipating. His speed has certainly dissipated, and I just wonder whether he's used all of the pages of his experience here in round number 7, whereas Chris Eubank Jr. appears to have more experience in his locker that he can access.
Just over halfway through the fight, and Conor Benn once or twice in that round looked desperate. He didn't look happy. He was looking out the ring, but he was brave. He wasn't going to back down. He took some big shots in that round, Rich. What's more, it looked to me like Eubank was teeing him up in the 7th.
Yeah, big round for Chris Eubank there. I think, you see, Conor Benn, he keeps making these mistakes of launching the attack from too far out, and he almost come a cropper there. He walked onto a big right uppercut, too far out, fell short, and then walked onto the shot. Got to get back to setting up the attacks behind his jab, but the zip's gone out of his work now, and yes, Chris Eubank Jr. is being more and more accurate with his long-range work and his uppercut on the inside.
Richie, is Conor Benn, I mean, just quickly, is he vulnerable, really vulnerable in the next couple of rounds, unless he turns something around?
I think Eubank could go for a stoppage these next couple of rounds, Steve.
Yeah,
I reckon.
I think you're right, Richie. I think you're right.
I think so.
So we move into round number 8. Conor Benn has come out aggressively, swinging with hooks and right crosses. Not too far away with the left hook. The right hand is consistently going over the shoulder of Eubank, who then counters with a beautiful 2-shot combination. Left jab, right cross in the middle of the boxing ring, and applies the headlock once again, sticking the neck of Conor Benn beneath his left armpit, forcing the referee, Victor Loughlin, to intervene. 30 seconds gone in the round as the physicality resumes on the inside once more, and now Victor Loughlin speaking in the direction of Chris Eubank Jr. once again, telling him to cut out the headlocks that he's continually employing. What use of the left hand from Chris Eubank Jr., body and head. Conor Benn had success with the right hand in between, but then Chris Eubank Jr. again having the final word, and that must be really discouraging for Conor Benn, because when he's having pot shot successes with the right hand, invariably after being put on the end of jab successes from Chris Eubank Jr. Eubank Jr. ensures that he has the final word. So even though Conor Benn is in the contest, I don't think he's winning the contest through these last 3 rounds. And again, Chris Eubank Jr. just rides the right hand which came in from Conor Benn, but then Conor Benn keeps the attack going with a right hook and left cross. Conor Benn marauding his way forward once again, bombing away with the backhand, but Chris Eubank Jr. maintaining the gap and continuing to shoot out the left jab. Slings in a right uppercut just to the body above the belt line of Conor Benn, as Conor Benn seeking to bob and weave his way back into range once more. But now it's Eubank on the front foot, backing up Benn to the ropes on the far side of the ring. Conor Benn turns the tables. Referee Victor Loughlin prizes the 2 men apart, and it's Chris Eubank Jr. grinding his way forwards behind left jabs and right hands to the body. Conor Benn, noticeably the man keen to initiate a clinch there on the resumption after the 2 men stepped back beyond range. It was Conor Benn who broke the standoff with a left-right, but both shots were inaccurate. And if you spent any time in the boxing ring, as Chris Eubank Jr. lands another jab, then hooks off the jab, and the legs of Conor Benn just forced to dip. And this is becoming a really difficult mission now for Conor Benn, because the more Chris Eubank Jr. lands, the more pronounced effects his punches are having. Even the jab from Chris Eubank Jr. Remember, he dropped Liam Williams twice with jabs during the course of their bitter contest when he was working under the tutelage of Roy Jones Jr. But Conor Benn bravely wills his way forward once more, winging away with hooks on the inside, found the range with a left hook to the body, and now it's physical as the 2 men entwining arms, both men feeling the pace of their endeavours deep into round number 8. Oh, solid shots exchanged in the middle of the boxing ring, each man having their head swiveled and then freeing their hands from an untidy clinch to bob away with the free gloves once again. They lean on one another near the blue corner on this near side of the ring. Each man digging in, hooks, and it's Conor Benn wheeling on the ropes now. Chris Eubank Jr. seeking to assert his authority. Conor Benn trying to fight off the strands as the 2 men punch right up until the bell of round number 8. We're heading over to the red corner to listen into the instructions of Tony Sims in the direction of his charge, Conor Benn.
Come on. And again. Breathe. Right, Con, you had him there, mate. See what I'm saying? You got to pull the trigger on him, Con. Don't let him off, alright? As soon as you connect with him, you're hurting him. Come on, breathe.
There's Tony there, quite simple. Tony Sims talking to him. As soon as you're hurting him, as soon as you're catching him, you're hurting him. You've got to pull the trigger. You've got to let the shots go. Chris Eubank Sr., I think, is coming round to have a word with his son. We have raw and unadulterated drama here. It's incredible. There's Chris in the corner shouting up to his son, shouting to him. You can't invent the drama here. You can't invent what we're witnessing and what 67,000 people are also witnessing.
67,480 people in attendance here at a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium that is filled to capacity. And this family feud that is being continued by the sons of the famous fighting fathers is producing a ferocious encounter in the 160-pound middleweight division. Counter left hand, counter right hand, left hook from Conor Benn. Checks the chin of Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn kept the attack going and landed with another 2 punches. But Chris Eubank Jr. took the well. But a terrific passage of the 9th round for Conor Benn. Left-right combination in the form of a jab and a cross, followed by a right uppercut from Conor Benn, who is heeding his coach's instructions. Tony Sims telling him to believe in his power and follow up when he hurts his man. Speculative left hook attempted to the body from Conor Benn was wildly inaccurate, as was the follow-up left hook. And now, having endured a difficult passage of the round, Chris Eubank Jr. drives Conor Benn to the ropes near the neutral corner on this near side of the ring, trying to fight off the ropes is Conor Benn. He fires over a bazooka of a backhand which grazes the chin of Chris Eubank Jr. Another backhand lands on the glove defences of Chris Eubank Jr. from Conor Benn. But a terrific exchange in the middle of the boxing ring. Right hand success once again for Conor Benn. Chris Eubank Jr. leaning on his man once more, seeking to drive him back to the blue corner on this near side of the ring. Conor Benn again sinking his back foot into the canvas. That was a demonstrably low blow from the left hand of Conor Benn into the protective cup of Chris Eubank Jr. But no complaints from the bigger man wearing the white trunks trimmed with red. But Conor Benn, having endured a difficult couple of rounds, has really picked up the pace here. But Eubank trying to fight fire with fire, seeking to push Conor Benn back to the neutral corner on the far side of the ring. The decibel level being raised up here by the capacity crowd in attendance of the two men fashioning a clinch, and there's a cut to the right eye of Chris Eubank Jr. The heads rubbing vigorously together during this passage of infighting, and it appears to be a significant cut as well. Victor Loughlin taking a close look. His white referee shirt now stained with blood, and that has encouraged Conor Benn, who bustles away to the body, ends with a left hook, but then Chris Eubank Jr. drives him back, hurts him to the body, digging away downstairs to the tattooed torso of Conor Benn. 35 seconds remaining. Beautiful left hook from Chris Eubank Jr. But hooks from the right hand and then a left hook in response from Conor Benn. And this contest taking on an attritional quality now. Never mind the skill, never mind experience. This is about conditioning and will and heart and desire. And here in round number 9, Chris Eubank Jr. having to fight through the adversity of a cut right eye. It's causing him to blink. And he's almost unsighted out of that right optic, and that's why he couldn't evade that piston-like left jab. Driven in by Conor Benn. Terrific round by Conor Benn, who just checks the eyes of his man as they walk back to their respective corners.
This fight is about family pride. We've talked for years about what might happen in this fight. We've dreamed about what might happen. Richie, everything we wanted has come true. We are witnessing a great fight, a classic fight, an incredible fight.
Unbelievable, and they say the best form of defence is attack, and that's exactly what Conor Benn is doing. Just when you think that Eubank's getting the upper hand, back he comes. That speed element is there. But what Eubank is doing now, Steve, as well, he's manhandling him a little bit. He's leaning on him.
He's got to, I think, Rich.
Yeah, he's using all his weight, all his experience, but he's in a toe-to-toe battle here, and it's nip and tuck. It really is. That was a really close round. I couldn't split him.
Listen, I think I've got it 5-4 at the moment to Eubank, but it's a hard 5-4. It's a gruesome pride 4. Pride is what this is all about. It's the family pride we thought we'd get, and we are getting it.
So both men re-enter the fray to begin this round here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's round number 10, and the two men resume their toe-to-toe battle. Conor Benn pinned to the ropes just above our commentary position. Solid left hook landed by Chris Eubank Jr. And as he seeks to tie his man up with his left hand, he's working away with his free right hand. That greater experience, that greater depth of ring craft on display during that passage of the round. And Chris Eubank Jr. seeking to continue to confine Conor Benn near the blue corner. Referee Victor Loughlin separates the two, and they find themselves in the middle of the boxing ring once again. But now, the long-range boxing, the mid-range boxing has almost disappeared, and everything is toe-to-toe, chest-to-chest. And as I say that, driving forward in a two-phase attack, where he ended with a left uppercut, was Chris Eubank Jr., but he seemed to be so fatigued that when Conor Benn spun off the ropes near the blue corner, Chris Eubank Jr. almost fell through the ropes, and both men having to dig deep to summon up their reserves of energy that they will have built up to championship levels during their monastic devotion demonstrated in training camp. Hooks exchanged, and all of a sudden, Chris Eubank Jr. appears to be feeling the pace, because he almost wilted on the ropes near his own blue corner. Conor Benn, again, some sharpness comparatively, has returned to his work. Halfway through round number 10, referee Victor Loughlin prizes the two men apart. On the resumption, it's a left hook slung in by Chris Eubank Jr., and then he's seeking to dig away with the right hand. Referee Victor Loughlin becoming increasingly involved now. Oh, that's a hard left uppercut to the solar plexus from Conor Benn, as Chris Eubank Jr. was seeking to walk his way inside. Left jab was inaccurate from Eubank. The left hook which followed was altogether more on point, but then good body shot downstairs from Conor Benn. Solid right hand landed from Conor Benn, causes Chris Eubank Jr. to tuck up, but he took the shot well. The injured right eye, the cut right eye, is beginning to leak blood once again, and Chris Eubank Jr. suddenly, here deep into round number 10, appears the worse for wear. Testing his conditioning by slinging in hooks to the body is Conor Benn, and now he's got the dynamism and zip returning to his work as he bobs and weaves on the ropes. Elbow goes in with the left hand from Chris Eubank Jr., who's seeking to dig away downstairs to test the conditioning of his rival here. 30 seconds remaining with the action on the ropes on the far side of the ring, and it's Chris Eubank Jr. who is refusing to be outworked here. The accuracy has decreased, and both men summoning up every last reserve of energy in this contest that is really attritional now. Who will be able to demonstrate their depth of desire in this third encounter of a famous fighting family rivalry? 10-second clapper, barely audible here at this capacity Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in North London. And on the 10-second clapper is the burst of punches to the body from Chris Eubank Jr., who finishes the round in strong fashion.
Barely strong fashion, he barely made it back to his corner. Both of them exhausted. You know, the cynics and the critics and the people that criticised this fight, the people that said we wouldn't get the fight that we were creating, they were absolutely wrong, so wrong. Richie, we have been gifted tonight so far with 10 pulsating, brutal rounds where they've had to sacrifice everything just to be left standing.
Yeah, this is a classic, it really is. And what you're seeing now is Eubank Jr. is actually trying to outwork him on the inside with little shots, but it's the eye catchers that are coming from Conor Benn. He seems to have got a second wind. He's putting more speed into his shots. He looks the more dangerous puncher of the two at this stage.
And Richie,
I didn't think I'd be saying that.
And Richie, how have you got it? I've got it 5-5. How have you got it?
Steve, are you looking at my card?
No, I'm not looking at your card. You're 6 feet from me.
No, I've got 5-5 also.
5-5. 2 rounds. Take us home, Ron. Take us home, son.
So we go into the championship round. Chris Eubank Jr. has completed the championship distance on 5 occasions. Conor Benn just once, but again it is he who is coming out in more aggressive fashion. The entwinement of arms continues as the two men fuse in a clinch once again. Referee Victor Loughlin barely separated the two, but then it's Chris Eubank Jr. intent on pushing his opponent backwards. Conor Benn trying to demonstrate his explosivity and hand speed, but Chris Eubank Jr. is determined not to be outworked during these toe-to-toe exchanges. Hard left hook driven into the body from Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn seeking for some quality with his own right hand as the two men bind on the inside like barnacles once again. Referee Victor Loughlin has to separate the two. There's a moment of quality with a left jab to the body followed by a right uppercut to the serratus, and then a counter right hook from Chris Eubank is a cracking shot as Chris Eubank Jr. puts his man on the end of a double jab which drives Conor Benn backwards. Conor Benn, breathing through a mouth that's open, shoots out a jab from the belt line twice in quick succession. The two men fall onto the shoulders of one another once again, and it was at this type of territory as the right hook scores around the corner on the inside from Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn responds with the same shot. Right hook to the head, left hook to the body from Conor Benn, but it was during the coming together on the inside that Chris Eubank Jr. sustained a cut to his right eye in round number 9. So halfway through this penultimate round, And again, both men leaning on one another on the inside, digging away downstairs with the right hand, with nudging shots. Is Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn reciprocates with his own right hand to the body. And this one increasingly being fought in the confines of a phone booth in what is a very small 18-foot boxing ring. And now it's Chris Eubank Jr. on the front foot, swarming forward behind hooks and uppercuts, driving Conor Benn to the ropes on the far side of the ring. Chin checker or right hook lands from Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn trying to fight back, but it's Chris Eubank Jr. getting the better of this exchange. 50 seconds remaining in a pulsating 11th round, and neither man giving any quarter, as again they continue to defy conditioning and summon up something to continue to fight through the fatigue that must be enveloping them here deep into this 11th round. On the resumption, after this intervention of referee Victor Loughlin, the two men swinging away freely once again, and it's Conor Benn seeking to get onto the front foot, but Eubank stands his ground. He looks up at the Jumbotron above his own blue corner. Good left hook to the body from Conor Benn. Burst of punches in response upstairs from Chris Eubank Jr. And then the two men rattling the ribs of one another with non-stop punching to the body once more. This is absolutely extraordinary at the 10-second clapper, barely audible in round number 11. Both men continuing to punch right up until the final bell as they continue to give everything.
There's been 3 outrageously exceptional rounds, and the rest of the rounds have been incredible. This fight has gone beyond all expectations. These two men have very little to give. They have sacrificed, they have put every single ounce of their energy and desire on the line. Rich, I'm genuinely flabbergasted and lost for words.
Yeah, unbelievable pace that the fight is being fought at now. Nip and tuck, toe-to-toe there. I just thought Eubank landed the better shots in that round, but it was very close because Conor Benn came back at the end then and put a rally in as well. But it was incredible. Sensational stuff, really, because it's toe-to-toe. The referee isn't having to get in between him. They're just working away on the inside, but I just thought Eubank did the better work, better quality.
I've got Eubank in front here. He wins this round, he wins the fight. Benn wins this round. It's a draw. That's the way I can see it. You know what? And I tip the draw.
You're listening to professional boxing of the highest order in this domestic grudge match at 160 pounds. Another classic unfolding before our very eyes between the family rivals, Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Into the 12th round we go. There was the most perfunctory touch of gloves to get things underway. And now, Chris Eubank Jr., seemingly refreshed with another lease of life, has got Conor Benn pinned to the neutral corner on this near side of the ring. Conor Benn's head almost went in between the top 2 ropes. And Chris Eubank Jr. coming out with a volley of punches at a blistering pace. Referee Victor Loughlin gets in between the two men. And now, Conor Benn slinging in hooks and uppercuts. The left hook wasn't too far away, but it's Chris Eubank Jr. who will not be denied. Drives his man backwards to the neutral corner on this near side of the ring once again. And is working as though he's on a heavy bag, digging away downstairs to the body and occasionally punctuating it with a right hook to the chin. Back at the edge, on the edge of range, the two men fall into one another in the middle of the boxing ring once again. As the decibel level being dialed up to maximum, and Chris Eubank Jr. near his son's own blue corner, right next to our commentary position, is encouraging the crowd to give the boxers more energy, and they will seek to harness that energy as Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. continuing to trade hell for leather, a torrid application of hammer and tongs punching in the middle of the boxing ring. Both men testing the ribs of one another. It's Chris Eubank Jr. with a howitzer of a left hook. Conor Benn out on his feet, but his wits remaining about him somehow, weathering the storm. As Chris Eubank Jr. checked his chin with an absolute thunderbolt of a left hook. Minute remaining here in round number 11. Conor Benn has got nothing left. Only his pride and his conditioning keeping him upright. Can Eubank Jr. find a moment of quality? He continues to let his hands go in unrelenting fashion. What on earth is keeping Conor Benn upright? He was momentarily pinned against the neutral corner turnbuckle on the far side of the ring. Chris Eubank Jr. has to set himself to get his boxing stance back beneath him. Right hand success on the resumption from Conor Benn, and another cracking left uppercut from Chris Eubank Jr. All of these punches shaking Conor Benn down to his boots. A left hook checks his chin once more from Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn, his fighting instincts seeing him draped all over the back of Chris Eubank Jr. And this one, with 20 seconds remaining, still sees both men leaving the fans at ringside shaking their head in sheer disbelief. Left hook to the body from Conor Benn. 10-second clapper, barely audible here. And the fans up on their feet in appreciation of what they have just witnessed in a domestic middleweight classic that is every bit worthy of the familiar fighting family names of Benn and Eubank. Because in this battle of the sons of the famous fighting fathers who captivated the entire nation in the 1990s, this rivalry that is reborn in the new millennium here in 2025 sees them live up to the brilliance that their fathers put forth before. Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. fighting one another to a standstill over 12 pulsating rounds. Conor Benn has been hoisted onto the shoulders of his father, and now Christopher Livingston Eubank embracing Conor Benn, the opponent of his son, who fought with such pride and ferocity. Nigel Benn is making his way over to the blue corner and exchanging sentiments with Chris Eubank Jr. And it is wonderful to see this respect between British boxing's most famous fighting families. 12 pulsating rounds in the middleweight division, where both men extracted the very best from one another. We are now going to the scorecards, and it's going to come down to the verdicts of Lee Every, Kieran McCann and Mark Bass, the three scoring judges. But what a pulsating affair, where both men gave absolutely everything.
That expression, they fought themselves to a standstill, that might be what we find in the dictionary when we go search for that in the future. They fought themselves to an absolute total standstill. Conor Benn there talking to Gordon Ramsay. Both of them are exhausted, Fletch.
Steve, I can't believe what I've just witnessed.
Same
for
here.
12 rounds. I mean, I never thought it could live up to what the fathers delivered back in the 1990s. You can make a really strong case that that was even better. How on earth neither of them touched the canvas? The aggression, the determination, the resilience. I mean, everything you wanted from a big night and a big fight. Here's Michael Buffer.
After 12 rounds, all three judges scored the same: 116, 112. The winner by unanimous decision, Chris Eubank Jr.
Chris Eubank Jr. sinks to his knees in celebration and lets out a battle cry to the heavens here beneath the stars at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He now rises back up to his feet and is warmly embraced by his father, who was absent throughout the entire build-up to this contest. But the two men reconciled on fight night, and how much extra inspiration did Chris Eubank Jr. draw from the presence of his father, Christopher Livingston Eubank. He now makes his way to the corner of the boxing ring, climbs atop the ropes, and acknowledges the applause that he is receiving from this capacity crowd here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Conor Benn experiences defeat for the first time in his professional career. He's bitterly disappointed over in his red corner, but it's a defeat that has not damaged his stock in any way, shape or form. But it's Chris Eubank Jr. who prevails in this rivalry battle between he and Conor Benn. And it's Conor Benn consigned to defeat for the first time in the pro ranks. Chris Eubank Jr. victorious.
Thank you, Ron. I'm not a lip reader by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm pretty sure Chris Sr. just said to his son the words, "You proved it."
Yeah, that would not surprise me at all. He's always said he needs that special win. He needs that win that takes him, that elevates him. So perhaps that was it. That gas, by the way, over the brow of Eubank is an inch and a half. Inconsolable, Colin Benn, at the moment.
Steve, I've got to say, he's barely moved a muscle. He's just turned away now. He's just been stood looking out of the ring, leaning against the ropes, taking in the fact, Conor Benn, that he's been beaten for the first time. Chris Eubank hasn't done a great deal. He's probably not, Richie, got a great deal of energy left. I mean, that straight away is a British boxing classic. And when you put it alongside the two fights the fathers had, That is everything that those two fights were.
Yes, absolutely.
Chris, congratulations. 2 words, and those 2 words are Eubank supremacy. Tell the world what this means to you right now.
It's yes. First of all, we thank the one above. I knew I was capable of that. I just needed someone to bring me out, bring that out of me. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect that he'd be the guy to do that. But the fact that our fathers did what they did all those years ago, it brings out a different soul, a different spirit into you. And that's what we both showed here tonight.
What do you believe won you the fight tonight, Chris, through those 12 rounds?
I pushed through. There's a lot of things that have been going on in my life that I'm not going to get into right now. But I'm happy to have this man back with me, and we've upheld the family name like we said we were going to do, and onwards and upwards.
We weren't sure if we'd seen your father here tonight. How much of a lift did it give you on a night like this?
A lot. It was one of those things that was special. It was special. He needed to be here. All of this is because of what he did. And we just did it again, baby.
Although you said the procedure would be parliamentary, you also said it was impossible for it to go 12 rounds. Was there anything that surprised you in there tonight, coming back from Conor Benn?
Everything surprised me. I didn't know he had what he had in him. I really didn't. I thought I would break him early. I underestimated him. I didn't train for a fight like that. I didn't know he had that in him. He's never shown that. But then again, he's never had to show it. He had to show it tonight. And so did I.
Hang tight, Chris, because we are going to come back to you, of course. I do want to grab a word with your father. Chris, how special was that? As I said to Chris, we weren't sure if we would see you tonight. But my obvious question is, how proud are you of your son watching that from ringside?
Listen, I mean, he couldn't move around the ring, and so he had to stand toe-to-toe. I mean, that is legendary behavior in the ring. Legendary. And this Conor Benn, as I said, Conor Benn is an extraordinary fighter. He's gone pear-shaped somewhere, but an extraordinary fighter. And you saw that here tonight. He wanted to tear, and I thought he would blow out in maybe 4 or 5 rounds. He's going strong. He's going strong right the way through the fight. I am so proud of him. That's my son. That's right. That's why I'm here. I was always going to be here. That's right. Rastafari.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Eubank. A pleasure to speak to you. We're going to make our way over the ring, and we're going to try and speak to Conor Benn, who is here. Conor, we are live. We're live on DAZN. Conor, an incredible fight, an incredible effort. Everything left in this ring at Tottenham Hotspur tonight. Can you tell us what's going through your mind, and perhaps in terms of the game plan, what didn't quite go to plan?
I don't know. I mean, maybe 14 months out of the ring, played a factor. Probably say that'd be the only thing. Just maybe inactivity. But apart from that, I felt like it was a close fight. I'm not going to go, I think I won it and all that. I've got to watch it back. I know it was close. I stayed on the ropes maybe a bit too long. He worked harder towards the end. I'm going to have to watch it back, man. But I enjoyed it, and a massive thank you to all my supporters who come out. Some homecoming.
Chris said you surprised him. He didn't think you had that in you here tonight. Has your opinion of him changed after 12 rounds like that?
Yeah, listen, we always knew Chris is a good fighter. All the fighting talk is fighting talk. He's a good fighter. I believe I can fight at 160. If we don't do the rematch, which I'd love to avenge that loss, go back down to welterweight and win the WBC world title. See the Mario Barrios or the rematch for Eubank, whichever happens next, I'll be content with.
I'll say, Conor, commiserations, but congratulations on a fantastic fight and an incredible show. It takes two to make a fight like this. Nigel, immediate thoughts on your son's efforts in this ring tonight? That was incredible.
I thought he done really well. He learned a lot from this. He come back stronger. Like he was working too much on the ropes. Should have been off the ropes. We're not taking nothing away from Chris. It's his night. we can handle defeat gracefully. You know what I mean? And now we go back to the drawing board, where we went wrong. So that's it,
Nigel, thanks very much for speaking to us. Promoter Eddie Hearn is here as well. We'll try and grab a word with Ben Shalom and everyone we can. Eddie, what a fight, first of all, from ringside. Your immediate verdict?
Unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't split him at the end. I thought Conor Benn was winning the fight. I thought he lost the last 2 rounds, and I couldn't split him. 116, 112, 3 times. Like, I'm not going to... You've seen me moan before about scores. It is what it is, but I don't see Chris Eubank winning that fight by 4 rounds at all. But forget that. Just unbelievable respect for both men. I could not be prouder of Conor Benn for what he's been through and the heart that he showed in the ring tonight. Nigel Benn was the people's champion. Tonight, Conor Benn became the people's champion. He rose up from 147 pounds to fight a middleweight in there. He took the kitchen sink. He never stopped trying to win the fight. And that's what the public love to see. Someone that, to the final bell, does not stop throwing punches and trying to win. A little bit of inactivity, a little bit of inexperience, but I could not be prouder of Conor Benn. Tonight, I believe he won by the hearts of the country and everybody that tuned in. I thought he could have won the fight. Razor thin. We'll see what happens. Look, Conor Benn is a 147-pounder. He's going to win world titles down there. We'll see if he'll do the rematch or not at 160. He'll want to do it. It was one of the best fights, one of the most dramatic fights I've seen. Big respect to Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. 2 great examples. A sport built out of respect, and those 2 warriors should respect each other after that. I could not be prouder of Conor Benn.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eddie. What a stage. What a fight. Back to you guys.
Absolutely astonishing. And I've got to say, Steve, I don't know where you want to start with all of that, where you want to pick up from, but that's not your usual set of post-fight interviews. A lot of emotion with the Eubanks, a lot of emotions with the Benns. And I was watching Nigel and Conor during Chris's interview, and Conor just lay essentially on his dad's shoulder being consoled after giving absolutely everything. So much emotion in the ring tonight.
You know what? The reason why it wasn't like the kind of interviews you see at the end of a fight like this, a heroic, unbelievable fight, is because neither of them had anything left, Fletch. They were absolutely exhausted.
Well, let's get a bit more reaction. Stacey is with Harlem Eubank.
Well, we watching that as boxing fans, whether you were working here or not, was an absolute privilege. It was electric. As a family member, I mean, goodness me. Watching this as a cousin, watching a loved one in that kind of fight, but that kind of battle, what was it like for you ringside?
That was a real battle. And Junior, he dug deep and came out on top. And at the stage of his career that he's in now, that was impressive.
He said in the week on the 5 Live Boxing pod with Bunsey that he has ice in his veins. Not Bunsey, Chris Eubank Jr. that is. How proud are you of him tonight with that kind of performance?
Sensational. Sometimes you have to go to the well to get it, and he done that tonight.
Well, congratulations. Go and celebrate with him. Thanks for chatting to us on 5 Live.
Stacey, thank you. That's Harlem Eubank. So some more immediate reaction from within the Eubank family. Richie, I just said to Steve there, the amount of emotion in the ring, not just from the winner but from the loser, you could see what it meant. And every answer, particularly that Chris Jr. gave, harked back to the days and the standards set by his dad and by Nigel. And whatever you thought prior, whatever was said prior, all of that came out over 12 rounds. And then afterwards as well, the respect, the determination and the family pride. It was there for everybody to see.
Yes, and he admitted as well, didn't he, how much it meant for his dad to be there. And I knew it would. I knew it would be a big thing for him. And it was probably the icing on the cake that his dad was there. But yeah, I mean, that was a classic. That was every bit as exciting as the previous fights with Eubank Senior and Benn back in the 90s. And that was tremendous stuff. That'll go down probably fight of the year, I would think.
Oh, listen, it'll be fight of the year. Let's
definitely a contender, Steve.
No, more than the contender. I'm going to tell you, I was ringside. I was this close for the first fight, and I was close. I was actually on the ring apron for the rematch. And I said after 1 or 2 rounds, when Ronald came to me, I said, this resembles the first fight. Not just Benn's black shorts. It really resembled the first fight. And I've got to tell you, I think it might have eclipsed both of them. Yeah. It was raw, it was painful, it was suffering.
Let me put this to you then, because all the way through Chris Eubank Jr.'s career, his dad has always said he's got to do the right thing. If you get into this sport, you fight the very best. You've got to prove yourself. And he's been quite derogatory about the progress or lack thereof that his son's made with regard to fighting the very best. As he proved to his father tonight, that he's gone into this career and taken it as seriously as his dad wanted him to.
Not only has he proved that to his father tonight, but as I said at the top of the show, it seems like about 7 hours ago, he's done it to prove to his father. This tonight was a fight. I know there were 67,000, Ronald's got the rest of the numbers, 67,000 plus people in here tonight, and millions watching around the world. But let me tell you this, those two men, they weren't fighting for any of those. They were fighting for the two guys sat at ringside, Eubank Senior and Benn Senior.
Well, we've heard from Eddie Hearn, let's hear from Ben Shalom, he's with Stacey.
Goodness me, it's not many nights that you get to promote like this, Ben, is there? And even in a long career, that was something else. The fight itself, I think, went beyond all of our expectations.
Listen, as Chris Eubank Jr.'s promoter, I hoped it would be a lot easier than that. I have to say, I thought Conor Benn was superb. I really do. I think he prepared really well and caused a lot of problems, and in the end it came down to will and grit and determination, and I actually think Chris won it in those last 2 rounds.
It had what the best fights have, that shift in momentum when you're thinking, that they're taking the upper hand, and then they are. It just went back and forth, and ultimately, as you say, perhaps it did come down to that sheer will and heart.
Absolutely. I think, look, he asked a lot of questions of Chris, and I'm sure Chris, after 6 or 7 rounds, was thinking, what have I just got myself into? But he dug deep, he breathed, and it just became an absolute firefight, and it was back and forth. Look, was it the most technical fight in the world? No, we didn't expect to see that. It was an absolute brawl. Both of them back and forth and swinging from the rooftops, and in the end Chris came through as we thought he would, but what a phenomenal performance from both guys, and it could have gone either way.
It was absolutely incredible. Not the most technical, as he says, boys, but none of us cared because it was incredible. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, it was a classic, Stacey. Let's kind of just leave it there. Stacey talking to Ben Shalom. Ron, you wanted to come in on something that the guys were saying prior to hearing from Ben.
Indeed, what Steve was talking about, and the depth of energy and intensity that they were able to summon up when fighting effectively for their fathers. Remember, both of these guys, it's such an incongruous route into the sport. They grew up the sons of millionaires. They grew up the sons of boxing icons. They followed them into the family business. And when Chris Eubank Jr. first wanted to do it, what did his dad do, Steve? He said, if you want to be about this life, sent him away to Las Vegas to sink or swim in the ferocious gyms out there. And ever since he said he's going to enter this profession, Chris Eubank Sr. had been waiting for him to prove himself by summoning up that depth of soul that's required in a hard fight like that.
And tonight's the night that he's done it, and I think that's exactly why Chris said to him after the fight, you've proved it. I think tonight he got the father's recognition, which is something I'm sure that he's always been after. I mean, if you kind of look back on the fight, Richie, the first 5 rounds you would have said went Conor Benn's way, came out fast, he was throwing a lot of shots. The speed of Conor Benn at that point looked like it was going to be the decisive factor. It changed, though, when he started to slow down. I wrote a note in round 9 that was where Conor Benn found a little bit more. The second wind came in, and he came back again, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that's what impressed me about Conor Benn more than anything, I think, because really, compared to Chris Eubank Jr., he's fairly inexperienced, although he's at, the 23 fights, 23 wins, but he hasn't fought at the same level, nowhere near the level that Eubank Jr. has, and he started pretty quick, and we thought, well, can he keep this up? Then all of a sudden he sort of, he was feeling the pace a little bit, he was getting caught with some good shots. Eubank Jr. was starting to box at range a little bit more, and then, like you said, he got a second win from somewhere, and he's throwing these shots from all different angles. If you look at the fight itself, the one shot that really hurt Eubank was that left hook. I mean, he wobbled Eubank. I didn't see Ben really wobble from a shot the way that Eubank did.
Absolutely, Rich.
But I do think, Steve, overall, it was the experience of Eubank that probably got him over the line, especially in those last couple of rounds, because I think we all knew it was fairly close. I had it 1-1-5, 1-1-3 by 2. So he probably, in his mind, going into that 11th round, thinking, I need these last couple of rounds here just to make sure. And he just showed a little bit more experience, and he started to bully him a little bit more, and he got over the line with those 2 rounds for me.
And there were certainly many rounds when he did use that extra 10, 15 pounds, whatever it was, in the ring tonight. He definitely used that. But Rich, let's take it back. End of the 6th round, 7th round. You and I was convinced, because Ben had really lost his power, he'd lost his pace, he'd lost his rhythm, he wasn't letting his hands go, he was getting picked off. I thought 8 or 9 rounds maximum, I thought Eubank was going to come completely on. Ben was not in the fight for 2 rounds.
I was waiting for a stoppage the next 2 rounds.
Absolutely.
Because you could see that Ben had slowed down, he was getting caught at range, and I thought this is what Eubank's going to do now. He's just going to keep his distance, totally outbox him and dismantle him, basically, because he's the bigger man. Then all of a sudden, Ben just got a second win from somewhere and went to another level.
Let's have a conversation about the scores. 1-1-6, 1-1-2. All 3 judges in agreement. Eddie Hearn wasn't happy. He thought it was closer.
Too wide for me.
Yeah. Well, what you two were saying during the fight as well. You guys had it closer too.
Yeah, listen, I had it in the end 7-5. I said that Eubank.
7-5?
I said that Ben needed to win the last round for a draw, and I fancied the draw. I really did, and I think he won the last round, making it 7-5. I had no problem with 7-5, and I had no problem with 6-6. But the 8-4 is just a little bit. But you know what? All 3 of them had it. So that can happen. That can happen. I thought 8-4 was too wide.
And listen, I think the right man won. I thought overall, when you look at the contest, I thought he did enough to win the fight.
So what happens now then? Because there is this rematch clause, we're told, on both sides. Eddie Hearn said he's going to talk to Conor Benn, who he expects to want to do it again. It would have to be at 160. Chris Eubank Jr., what is he, 35? I mean, you can't have too many more like that at 35. No. I mean, what do you think the future looks like for the pair of them now?
You can't have too many fights like that at any age, if you want my honest opinion. If they were 23, you couldn't have too many more fights like that. I've got to be honest with you, that's a fight that takes an awful lot out of both fighters, the older man and the younger man, because the younger man's never been there. The older man's been there at least. He's got some muscle memory. He's got some hard shift rounds at the end. Okay, a rematch, absolutely, and I think there will be a rematch. But I've got to tell you, we're nearly in May. Okay, that means the rematch is not in 3 months or 4 months. We might find we're back next April. We might find we're on a 12-month wait.
But then, Steve, as you were pointing out, and as Richie pointed out earlier in the commentary, as soon as that bell rang, the size difference that was apparent between the 2 of them. Now, Conor Benn, as he said, he's a natural welterweight. He could go back down, and after he had a 17-month layoff before, 14-month layoff coming into this, with some activity and momentum, surely he could make a noise at 147 rather than going in for a rematch against a naturally bigger guy.
The last time Norman, the guy defended his world title, there were 17 people in the arena and I was there. He can't make a noise because the noise will be making $2 million. And we're in the boxing business. He's not going to risk getting outpointed by a slick welterweight for $2 million when you can fight him for $20 million.
Exactly, that's exactly.
Business, baby.
You took the words out of my mouth. But I like your point, Ron. And what Steve says, if it is another year down the road, if the rumours were that Eubank was struggling at the weight this time, then in another year's time, to make 160, that could be a step too far.
Steve, we've got about a minute left. I could stay here all night and talk about that fight because it was so good to watch. Give us your final thoughts and do it in the way that only you can.
Final thoughts here is they came out 66 or 67,000 people, and in their wildest of dreams they couldn't have imagined they'd see a repeat of something that we left behind all of those years ago. Not only did they see a repeat, but they stepped back in time. It was a time tunnel. They went back to a glory time in the 90s when Eubank and Benn fought at the NEC, and they stood toe-to-toe until 5 seconds before the ninth. Then they went back in time to the Theatre of Dreams, 48,000 people, when they also stood toe-to-toe, and it was a draw. We saw history tonight. We saw pride tonight. We saw a family dynasty continue something truly extraordinary.
I told you, only you could do it. Ronald McIntosh, thank you. Richie Woodall, thank you. Steve Bunce, thank you as always, and Stacey Copeland, who's been part of our team as well. Congratulations to Chris Eubank Jr. Commiserations to a very brave Conor Benn. Thanks for your company tonight. All we've got to end on by saying is that the fathers started it, the sons continued it. What a night and what a fight. Rina Ahmed is next on 5 Live. That's after the latest news from John Wilkinson.